What technical aspect of your voice did you have to change?
I had to stop yelling so much. Like one thing that people told me all the time, was that, like, you have great energy, you have a great voice, but you're literally screaming at the mic. Like I don't, and I listen back to myself and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting exhausted listening to
All
myself.
right.
And I think one of the biggest lessons that, I was taught in radio is that, you don't have to sound happy, cheery, energetic all the time. Because, typically that's usually what people associate with radio DJs.
Radio.
And there are
Yeah.
some DJs that do sound like that and that they do rock it, but it's not for everybody. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I realized that it's not for me as well, because I would find myself literally going, 9:40 in the evening. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. We'll be back again next weekend. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm hopped up on 2 cans of Monster Energy drink and I sound awesome. But, to people listening, they're just trying to have like a regular Saturday night. And here's this guy just yelling at them. So, one thing I learned from that experience was that you can totally you can sound, what am I trying to say? You don't have to sound super energetic and happy to sound entertaining. You can vary it up. You can switch it up. If you're talking about something, you can, switch your energy down lower, but always, have that engaging manner of speaking and always keep yourself on your toes in that sense, and always wrap it up nicely. And you can feel free to kind of play with your energy and the way you kind of speak with your voice. But you don't always have to be yelling and smiling and energetic all the time.
That's very important, I think, for especially anything audio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you can't see the people's faces, then the sound has to convey the emotion, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. If you're yelling all the time, you're just like, it's this one long emotion.
Yeah. And my father would always tell me, he would try to impart his bits of knowledge about radio and audio. And he would always say that, audio, or he would say radio is the theater of the mind. So it's one thing to watch a stage play or to watch a movie or to watch TV. There's a visual aspect to it. But with radio or with, podcasts or with, audiobooks and anything like that, you have technically more freedom than you do with film or anything visual, because when people, for example, are listening to just audio and you show, for example, so you have like a short film, you show them a short film about a forest. There's a specific forest. There's a specific guy in that forest. There's a specific, cabin that he goes up to. But if you're, for example, producing, radio drama or, a dramatic podcast, and you, for example, instead play the sound of crunching footsteps on grass, and you hear the crickets in the ambiance of the forest, and you hear him opening the door of this cabin, it can look 1,000 different ways in your head. And so there's kind of more power in that, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what I love about even like what you mentioned, like these drama podcasts and everything. You and I could listen to the same podcast and have 2 very different images in our head. And I think that's amazing. That's so cool. That's so cool to me.
It works in voiceover and the voiceover world as well. I mean, there are a lot of people who get into voice acting, especially lately with people trying to find new ways to earn money.
Yeah.
They get into voice acting and they get shell shocked because they realize that clients, they're no longer looking for the usual, buy this now, 59 pesos SRP. There is still a market for that, but is a bigger market for people who just want to hear natural sounding conversation. Like, hi, my name is Renzo and I'm a guest of the White Stripe podcast. No. It's very like, matter of fact and casual. And it's almost like people don't know how to dial it back to sounding normal again because they got so used to how people are usually depicting radio DJs or voiceover artists.
That's interesting to me because, like, you're right. Even I think personally that was one draw for me when I started to get into podcasts, and it was a bit early. Like I started listening around like I think 2016. Like I started really listening, and most of them at the time had very calm voices. Yeah, it was more educational centric. You know what I mean? Like it was very like 99% Invisible, Roman Mars, like very just chill guys. And I remember there would be days where I would go to school and I'd want to hear the radio. And then there would be days where I just wanted it to be, I just want to listen to what this guy says about New York and the sound that it makes. I don't know, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it was very chill, it was very normal, and that was one big draw. And I think people are adjusting to it now, huh?
Yeah, and it's actually great that you mentioned that, because it reminds me of, again, another advantage that audio as a medium has over something like TV or movies or anything visual. Because for example, if you just woke up, or you're on the way to work, or you're on the way to school, and obviously we can't be watching movies in our car on the way anywhere. It's dangerous, but of course if you're not driving, it's fine. But then there are some days where your brain also just isn't kind of in the mood to take in that much information. So audio is sometimes like the perfect way to get that. And you said it great. You said it right. Like there are days where you kind of just want to listen to music, and there are days when you just want to hear, mentally stimulating conversations. And I think podcasting and radio can offer both of that. But I have a question for you. I mean, as a podcaster, just you will also work in kind of like the same realm where we're both using our voices. What's kind of like the identity you wanted to kind of put out there with this podcast? I mean, were you kind of basing it out? Did you want to do more of like just a calm, collected dude having a conversation, or did you want to kind of, are you putting up a character? Is this like a version of Trey that isn't the same as he is in real life?
No, that's a great question. One thing that I learned through this whole process of having a podcast is that I want to release more of myself, more of my genuine self. So if you talk to me in real life, you might not get as much as you do on my podcast.
Okay.
Naturally, I do like to think about a lot of like the complexities of things and all that stuff. But when it comes to like emotion, I'm not as like, it doesn't come out as naturally to me on a normal conversation. Well, it depends who you are, but like,
right.
Let's say we just met in a bar somewhere. You're not gonna hear these things about me. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like I want to release those.
Unless
thoughts.
we're like 3 or 4 shots in.
Oh yeah,
then we're telling each other our deepest, darkest secrets, and you're my best friend and all that stuff. Yeah.
They were like, I'm like, Renzo, I have to tell you something.
I love you so much, man.
I just met you today, but you're the best. No.
Exactly.
So when it comes to the character, for me, I thought of it like I want to be a better version of myself in real life. Mm-hmm. I want to be a more honest version of myself in real life. And I want to have these conversations that mean more than what I normally have. And I'm not saying that I don't have these conversations outside. I do. Yeah. But there's a certain purpose to why I'm doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And I tried a lot of things. I also tried like the, hi, like I'm Trey, all that stuff. And I'm like, I think after like 5 minutes, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is not what I sound like in real life. Like this is not. And then I also tried like the almost like Roman Mars type, like, hi, welcome to the White Stripe podcast. And today, I'm like, I don't sound like that either, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, I try to find my own, how I would sound in real life, and then insert an extra sense of truthfulness or vulnerability that you wouldn't normally get. And that's how I pretty much got this whole podcast quote unquote character or way of delivering what I want to say.
No, I mean, you're doing it right though. I mean, I always tell this to people in our student DJ programs, Rookie Radio. I always tell them, no one can do you the way that you do you. And if you constantly try to sound like somebody else, you're either going to build a character and an image and a personality that is not sustainable. Example, you after 5 minutes getting tired of yelling.
I tried.
Yeah. And or you're just going to be unhappy because you're not going to feel like you're being honest to yourself. And the next person who can do that character better than you will thrive better than you will. And parang sayang lang yung hard work mo. So I always tell them, I always tell them, number one, you don't have to yell, you don't have to shout, you don't have to be so happy, energetic. And number two, you have to spend considerable time trying to figure out like who you are as an on-air personality or as a personality that is put to audio. Because again, if you are like quintessentially yourself and you are unapologetic about it, well, not to a sense where you don't apologize for your mistakes, obviously, but then where you're just yourself and you're comfortable being yourself and you're not trying to be anybody else, then that's literally the only thing and the best thing you can offer as a personality. So
I went through that as well. Like what I mentioned, the whole like upbeat energy. At the same time, I also kind of tried like that cool. Like I think it was unconscious as well. Like it was just what I wanted. I want to be this. You know, I want to be cool, the creative genius, whatever. You know what I mean? Like you want to be those kind of things, but it's not sustainable if it's not who you are.
Yeah, for sure. When did you kind of like have that realization? I mean, was it during a specific recording, or kind of was it just one day an epiphany? You were like, wait a minute, I can't sound like either of those.
It was a long process of what I wanted to do. So like what I had my first podcast with Don, the Bente podcast, and when I started this, I was kind of just like, where do I go from here? Yeah, you know what I mean? Because Bente had its own tone, and I think I was truthful there. And when I went to my own thing, I was like, okay, how do I produce myself? Yeah. And stay true? Because, of course, when you produce yourself, it's like you want to put the best out there. You want to, like, clean up. You want to do all that stuff. And then eventually, I think halfway through my run so far, I realized that there are so many things that I just want to keep in. Mm-hmm. There's some pauses where I'm just like, that pause is great.
Right.
Like, if I ask them, like, how did it feel when this happened? If I cut it and they go, oh, I felt this way. Or if I get the, you know what I mean? Like once I figured I want that, then I think the rest kind of just followed.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. That's great, because I was just thinking, the other day that when it comes to storytelling, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and as a dungeon master, I have to narrate and everything. And Matthew Mercer, who is a very talented voice actor and a very talented dungeon master as well, he takes advantage of those pauses. And, he like the pauses in between his words have just as much weight as the words themselves, because, sometimes the pause can be super telling. If there's a pause between, like before a person answers a question, it's because they're taking time to think about it. Or if there's a pause before they reveal something, it's because either they had difficulty revealing it and it's an honest moment, or, there really is something more to it. So yeah, there really is that realization, cleaning up audio in the sense, while it does work for example, like YouTube, if you're really like cutting up for time in an audio sense and you're trying to capture people genuinely, the ums and the stuttering and the silences and the pauses, that is just as juicy and just as honest as the words themselves.
Exactly. Like, and I even figured this out for myself. Even when I'm doing it myself. That's why I kind of figured out I want the whole vulnerable side of me. Mm-hmm. I want you to hear my voice cracking. You know what I mean? Like when I'm being emotional. I want you to hear that. I want you to hear the real side that I can't usually portray on the outside world and all that stuff. So that's why I kind of love doing this and in this medium. And when it comes to, let's say, the podcasting thing, you asked me, like, is there a moment? Like, there's so many different moments that I realized what I wanted.
Right.
There are so many different... Because I consume podcasts, like, an almost insane amount of episodes, like, a week. It's just how I am. Like, it's what I love listening to. I love working with podcasts. I love driving with... it consumes my life, almost.
Yeah.
So...
And it makes sense. That makes sense that you're doing a podcast as well, because, there is always kind of that age-old saying where... You do what you know. You do what you know. You do what you love. And if you're this deep into podcasting, then it just only makes sense that. And there's a certain comfort knowing that the person who's making the thing you're making loves and is into making the thing that they're making.
Exactly.
Which is a mess of a sentence, but I think makes sense.
So it's just a bunch of different things. I learned so much. I even have there are podcasts about making podcasts that I've listened to over and over again. I took notes of what I liked, what I didn't like. I tried to apply it. Slowly started to learn what I really wanted to do. And this is the result that comes out. Because even when you look at episode 1, 2, 3 to episode 20 plus that I'm on today, it's so different. My tone is a bit different. My style is a bit different. And that's only because I realized along the way that, I want to be like this, Right.
I don't want to. It's also, it helps that, but it helps that you've had so many guests that, that kind of exemplify that as well. The whole honest to themselves, and they're so strong in their personalities that it's inspiring and it's great. And it's so nice to talk to these people and to kind of get that energy from them, because we kind of embody that too.